This regular meeting of the Lincoln-Lancaster County Planning Commission of April 27th, 2016. A printed agenda is available outside the hearing room, and a copy of the full agenda, including the staff reports, is available at the front of the chambers with the clerk. The Open Meetings Act is posted just inside the doors at the back of the room. If you parked in the parking garage across the street to the north, it is open and no parking coupons are necessary. Out of courtesy for those attending this meeting, the commissioners and the staff, cellular phone usage is not permitted in these chambers during any portion of this meeting. We appreciate your cooperation. The Planning Commission action today is final on the following items. 1.1, special permit number 16009. 1.2, special permit number 16010. 1.3, special permit number 16012. 1.4, special permit 16014. 1.5, special permit number 16016, and 1.6, waiver number 16002. Any aggrieved person may appeal final action of the Planning Commission to the City Council by filing a notice of appeal with the clerk within 14 days following the action of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission action on all other items is a recommendation to the City Council or the County Board. First item of business is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held April 13th, 2016. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second. Beecham.
Jerry, call the order.
Beecham?
Yes.
Cornelius?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Lust?
Yes.
Sunderman?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Hove?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
The next item of business is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda will be called at the same time and will not be scheduled for a separate public hearing unless there's a request from someone wishing to speak or at the request of a commission member. I'll ask Jerry to read all of the consent agenda items into the record. Once those items are read, she will ask if there is anyone wishing to speak. If you wish to speak on an item on the consent agenda, we ask that you stand and state that item. That item will then be removed from the consent agenda and scheduled as a separate public hearing under Section 3 of today's agenda. All items remaining on the consent agenda will be voted upon in total with a motion of approval. Jerry, will you please call the items on the consent agenda?
Yes. Item 1.1, special permit number 16009. Item 1.3, special permit number 16012. And item 1.5, special permit number 16016 are being removed from the consent agenda for a separate public hearing. The remaining items on today's consent agenda are special permit number 16010 for the construction and operation of a fiber optic utility building on property generally located at 3515 Holmes Park Road, and this is final action unless appealed to the city clerk within 14 days. The next item is item 1.4, special permit number 16014 for the construction and operation of a fiber optic utility building on property generally located at the southeast corner of South 17th and Garfield Streets. Again, this is final action unless appealed to the city clerk within 14 days. And the last item on the consent agenda is item 1.6, which is waiver number 16002 to waive the requirement that every lot shall front upon and have access to a public street per section 26.23.140G of the subdivision ordinance on property generally located at 1741 Cushman Drive. And this is final action on this item as well. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these consent agenda items?
I see none.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak on any of these consent agenda items? If so, please stand and state that item.
My name is Rex Wamsley, and we are here to speak on special permit 16014, which is your rezoning for your fiber optic utility building. And we just have some questions. We own the property next door.
Okay.
Okay, we will remove that item for a separate public hearing then.
Okay, so we come in at a later time and then we...
Right, and I will call it, yes.
It'll be today.
Yeah, yes, today.
Just in a few minutes.
How late will it be today?
Just a few minutes. It'll be
Yeah,
right
just a
after.
few
Yeah.
minutes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, anyone else wishing to speak on any other items on the consent agenda?
I'd entertain a motion.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Beecham,
Second.
Cornelius. Jerry, please call the vote.
Okay. Just looking to see. Okay, Beecham,
Yes.
Cornelius,
Yes.
Core,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Lust,
Yes.
Sunderman,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Hove.
Yes.
Motion carried, 8-0. And then we go to the deferrals, request for deferrals.
Yeah. Where are we on the agenda here?
Number 2.
Keep going.
Oh, okay.
Here we are.
Okay. I'll now ask Jerry to call any request for deferral received from the applicant prior to this meeting.
Okay, the respective applicants have submitted written requests for 2-week deferrals, delaying public hearing and action before the Planning Commission until May 11th, 2016 for the following 2 agenda items. Item 2.1, special permit number 1906A to modify allowed agendas on an existing personal wireless facility, cell tower, on property generally located at 2601 North 70th Street. And the other item is item 4.1, change of zone 16010 from R4 Residential District to B3 Commercial District on property generally located at 2201 South 17th Street.
I'd entertain a motion.
Move deferral. Second, Beecham.
Jerry, call the vote, please.
Beecham,
Yes.
Cornelius.
Yes.
Core,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Lust,
Yes.
Sunderman,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Hove.
Yes.
Motion carried, 8-0.
Is there anyone present who would like to testify on agenda item 2.1, special permit 1906A at this time, rather than waiting until May 11th? Is there anyone present who would like to testify on agenda item 4.1, change of zone number 16010 at this time? Doesn't appear to be.
Okay.
So we'll now move to public hearings. The staff will make a brief presentation. The applicant will then be requested to present his or her testimony, followed by those who wish to testify in support, followed by those who wish to testify in opposition. The staff will then be given an opportunity to respond to the testimony, and then the applicant shall have an opportunity for rebuttal. Each person testifying should state their name and address and shall have 5 minutes to speak unless additional time is requested and granted. The timer will go off after 4 minutes, then you will have 1 minute to wrap up your testimony. The Planning Commission will vote immediately at the close of the public hearing unless the Commission votes to defer action or continue the public hearing. Jerry, please call the first public hearing item.
Jerry, before we do that, the applicant for special permit 16009 would like to defer for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Want to do
4
4
weeks.
weeks? Okay.
Move deferral.
Second.
Jerry, please call the vote.
Okay, let's see here. Let me just make a note. Okay, I'm sorry, that was Lust and,
Shear.
okay. Beecham,
Yes.
Cornelius,
Yes.
Core,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Lust,
Yes.
Sunderman,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Hove.
Yes.
Motion carried 8-0. So item, special permit 16009 will be deferred for 4 weeks. It'll be May 25th.
Do we need to ask if there was anyone who wanted to testify on that?
Yeah, is there anyone here that would wish to testify on item 16009? Don't believe so. This is on special permit 16009. It's item 1.1.
1801 Kings Highway.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Moving on, I will call the next item, which is item 1.3, special permit 16012 for the construction and operation of a fiber optic utility building on property generally located at the southwest corner of North 70th Street and Adams Street. Staff recommendation is for conditional approval, and this is final action by the Planning Commission unless appealed to the city clerk within 14 days.
Are there any ex parte communications?
Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed?
Nope. Brian?
Good afternoon, Brian Will, Planning Department. This application we're talking about today for Allo Communications is southwest of the intersection of North 70th and Adams Street. It's the area in the dotted line, hatched area here. You'll remember this as being a gas station or convenience store for decades. The site recently, though, has been cleared. If you were to drive by there today, it's bare dirt. There is essentially nothing there. This application today is for another communications utility building on behalf of Allo Communications, who we had one of these applications at Planning Commission at your last hearing, who's building a fiber optic network throughout Lincoln. There's going to be several of these similar buildings throughout the city. This one is to serve a portion of northeast Lincoln. For reference, this is an exhibit that was given of an illustration of what the facility is going to look like. Staff had reviewed this, recommended conditional approval, and I think the applicant agreed with those conditions of approval, which were not significant. However, it came off the agenda today because we did receive a letter. I guess I'd characterize it in opposition to this application. It's from Roger Elrod, Anderson Studio, which is the adjacent O2 property photography studio immediately adjacent to the south. And I guess to characterize it, he noted he's disappointed the city was considering about this facility at this location. And I think his sense of what should be occurring on his property was something more intense commercial development, perhaps drive-through restaurant of some sort or another. And so I guess I'd only note that it's not the city of Lincoln that's actually developing this facility. This is a private communications company, Allo Communications. This facility is consistent with the zoning, actually requires a special permit. And so based upon the zoning, I think the market determines the highest and best use, and in this case, it is for Allo Communications to locate this facility there. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have one.
Janelle?
Brian, the size of these buildings, as I understand it, are more like shed size type.
Correct.
So if this building were to go there, would that preclude any other development on the corner?
No, it wouldn't. I mean, it's commercially zoned, so you can locate more than one building on the property. So, yeah, where it's sited, there is a fair portion of the property that would still be developable for some other commercial purpose. Yes.
Brian, just as a follow-up to that, do we, can you refresh my memory, do we have setbacks for this type of building from how far from the adjacent lots they need to be? Do we have some requirements that kind of control where they are allowed to site it on their property?
Correct. The setbacks for the zoning district, for the B1 district, which this facility complies with. I don't have my glasses on right now, but I believe they noted the setbacks on the plan. They defined a building envelope, and this building is well outside those setbacks.
Okay, and so with this special permit, we're not
adjusting. No, there's no adjustments. There's no waivers of any kind. It's straightforward B1 zoning, special permit just for this facility with no adjustments.
One other question, just since we're going to be seeing a lot of these, can you just kind of walk us through planning's thought process in terms of what you all see and think about when you're, working with the applicant on where to site these? I'm sure you've thought about, we don't want them in certain places, we do like them in others. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, actually, these things are fairly, I think in the general sense, fairly non-obtrusive. I mean, they're the size of what we can put in our, backyard for a storage shed, accessory building. There's very little nuisance associated with them. They don't generate a lot of noise or light or dust or anything like that. Now, I think to the letter we got today, to somebody's point, is there a higher and better use? Could you make more intensive use of that property? Well, yeah, perhaps. But this use at this location, it's certainly compatible with the commercial development on the other three corners, as well as photography studio, as well as going into neighborhoods. I mean, maybe a little attention to screening, landscaping, as I think we've noted in one of the others. I think these are perfectly compatible in neighborhoods. I mean, I'd note that we do it by special permit. I think that's appropriate. I think if you were to look across the country in a lot of jurisdictions, sort of utility facilities like this, permitted, within certain parameters. And so, yeah, I think there are, nothing jumps to mind right off of a location perhaps where they'd be inappropriate, but it hasn't come to us yet, so.
And, sorry, I was just trying to see if I spotted it in here again, but will there be landscaping on this particular site? I know the picture had some, but I couldn't remember if that was specific to that special
Yeah,
permit.
there is landscaping. Excuse me. I think we have a recommendation here that it be reoriented or be relocated a little bit, a little more strategically placed than it is, but yes, so it will be landscaped.
Any other questions for Brian?
Brian, I noticed that you recommended or required a turnaround apron. Can you just kind of show me how that's going to impact what they have? And maybe the applicant would be better to show that.
Yeah. What we're describing there is, I mean, it's easy enough for. By the way, that's another sort of advantage here. The site redeveloping, we're getting rid of some driveways, the old, right at the middle of the busy intersection driveways. So we're eliminating a couple of those. But so it's easy enough that, I mean, just pull in here and stop. But what we're saying is, exiting onto an arterial street, that vehicle really needs to be headlights first pointed out. So we're talking about maybe some additional paving in this area here to allow the vehicle to back out. We don't think it's going to be difficult to modify that and add a little bit of paving. At least I haven't heard from the applicant that it's going to be, so we assume that it can be done easily enough.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks, Brian. Applicant?
Good afternoon, members of the Planning Commission. Mark Palmer with Olson Associates. With me today is Jeff Kinney with Allo Communications to answer any specific questions about the operations of the buildings and Allo's plans for Lincoln. We agree with the conditions that Brian has added in the staff report, and just regarding the higher and better use of this lot as a commercial lot, I think there's a couple of things that Brian touched on. The access management code wouldn't allow the driveways where they're shown today, so we're removing, there's 3 driveways to this property when it was a former convenience store, and we're removing 2 of those and we're utilizing 1. And when you actually come in, I mean, this corner lot's about the size of a corner residential lot, and to put a commercial use that requires parking when you have to adhere to the front yard setbacks, you can't park in the front yard setbacks, there's not a whole lot you can really put on this site that would be of a commercial nature, that would, a drive-through restaurant, you might, maybe that little one, the little runs are on, wherever it is, A and 40th Street, might be able to get squeezed in there, but you're really going to be squeezing something into this property. And so we agree with the conditions, and here to answer any questions.
Questions?
Just to follow up on your comment about the area, just scaling it, it looks like there's around 5,000 square feet or maybe even less of buildable area on the lot. So a commercial use with parking, because there would be parking required for any kind of commercial use, it'd be really hard to fit anything on 5,000 square feet.
Exactly. A typical fast food is on a pad site that's 3/4 to a full acre.
Yeah.
So you're looking at 43,560 square feet. So yeah, it's not a big site.
And inside the building, there won't be any emitting of noise or light or electricity or anything of that sort?
No, it's a quiet building.
Right, it's what we would call a lights-out facility, meaning it operates pretty much on its own. Techs would visit very rarely to perhaps augment. For the most part, it's a lights-out facility. So the fiber optic cables that are going to be distributed through city duct and duct that Allo is installing, through, all of the utility easements throughout the city. There are 4 of these structures through the city. So the city's being partitioned into 4 quadrants. Each quadrant has one of these structures. And this is where the fiber optic cables come back to or originate from. It's a central point of homing for the fiber optic cables.
So there's just 4 of these throughout the city?
Correct.
That's all you need. Okay. Other questions, Kathy?
I just have 2 quick ones. Since it's not really a manned building, I'm assuming the city will have some sort of contact person so that if it gets tagged with graffiti, something like that, that can always, they'll have somebody to reach out to who can get that taken care of right away.
That's correct. We have a 7x24 network operations center, and with an 800 number that's given to law enforcement, safety, and so forth in every city that we operate for that reason. If they see anything that looks abnormal, it's in our best interest that we get out there and get it taken care of. If we don't, it results in an outage, which is absolutely not something that we want. The structures then have environmental sensors on the inside, remote photography, so that if there's any vandalism or we're being broken into, we should be alerted to that.
Okay. And I'm going to kind of ask you the same question I asked Brian. I actually like that this is a little bit out of the neighborhood. I think if you have a block of residences and a house in the middle that's not contributing, I actually like this a little bit closer to the business district. I was just curious, does Allo have particular qualities that they're looking for in locating these spots?
Sure. What you're thinking of is a 50-year life cycle. It's hard to put all of this fiber. There's 3 million feet of utility easement throughout the city of Lincoln just to cover inside the city limits. And so this is something that you want to last for decades and decades and decades. So examples of things that we try to avoid would be a property where, say, there's a restaurant in the bay next to us. Well, what happens if there's a fire? What happens, And so what we like to do is tuck these away. We don't particularly want them visible. But if they're not out in the neighborhoods, then we're not where the fiber really needs to home to. So we want to kind of blend in with the area, be somewhat nondescript, and for the most part, just be left alone.
Thanks.
Anything else? Thank you. Is there anyone here wishing to testify in support of this item? Is there anyone here wishing to testify in opposition of this item?
And I didn't know I was going to speak for the people. You guys know who I am?
Could you introduce yourself, please?
Terry Pope Gonzalez, but let's not use Gonzalez because that's when you discriminate against me. Notice I have my glasses on. Now, when I speak when I'm angry at you, I didn't think I was going to get in front of you until we're in front of a judge, okay? 20 years ago, we had a planning meeting just like this. All the fancy promises were made, and guess what? 20 years later, where are we at? So listen, I'm not mad at you. No, actually, I am very angry at you. Because when you voted in September, you brought a hell of a lot of trouble down on my neighborhood. Now I'm really pissed. So I'm trying not to be. I'm not supposed to call you stupid. I promised my brother I would not say stupid, 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 okay? Because I don't think you people are stupid. I think you get paid by the mayor, and actually you don't. Who pays your wages? Does it the tax people, or is it the mayor? Now, I suppose that he thinks that his group is going to be okay. But you know what? That's what they said to us 20 years ago, all right? So I just want you to remember, who's going to be the one watching them? Because guess what? The city doesn't, okay? Terry Pope Gonzalez, 349 South 1st Street. And oh, hey, by the way, in September, did you check? The police have been to my house 83 times in 60 months. That takes it to 2011. What happened to the other 11 years worth of complaints? Think about it.
Is there anyone else here that would like to testify in opposition to this item? Do we have questions for staff?
I do have one.
Brian?
I'm not sure you'll know the answer, but the house or the property to the west, is that a house? Is it,
Yes, but it's commercially zoned. It's B1, but it is a dwelling.
is it used as a residence or is it used as a business?
I think it's used as a dwelling. I think
Okay.
somebody lives there, yes.
That was my question.
Is that all you
Thank
had?
Yep.
Anyone else? Do we have any questions, or do you want to say anything more? Okay.
Well,
What?
no, did Mr. Walmsley want to ask any questions?
Yeah, are we on 06014? Is that included? Is that-
Oh, no,
Two.
I'm
Probably the
mistaken.
next
This is
item.
That's the next
02.
one.
Sorry.
I'd entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Harris.
I'm sorry, okay.
Shear
Harrison,
second.
Shear.
Thank you.
Discussion.
I think that, sorry, I'll go first.
Great.
I think that this kind of cleans up a couple of problems where we're closing some of those entrances onto Adams into 70th, and that's a good solution. It is kind of a small lot, and I think that this facility will be just fine there. It blends in nice with both residential and commercial, so it's kind of a nice transition between the two.
Anyone else?
I'll just add that I do appreciate that there's going to be somebody monitoring all of these, because the last thing I want is for an unmanned building to become a target of vandalism and that kind of thing. So,
Yeah, I'm going to support this item, the fact that this is such a small area that it needs something like this, and obviously unless they expand it to the residential area beyond it, it wouldn't work. So, Jerry, please call the vote.
Beecham?
yes.
Cornelius?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Lust?
Yes.
Sunderman?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Hove?
Yes.
Motion carried 8-0. Okay, the next item I'm going to call is item 3.2, special permit number 16014 for the construction and operation of a fiber optic utility building on property generally located at the southeast corner of South 17th and Garfield Streets. This staff recommendation is for conditional approval, and this is final action by the Planning Commission unless appealed within 14 days to the city clerk. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on this application?
See none?
Andrew Theroff, planning staff. This is another Allo fiber optics building, so I'll just focus on some of the site-specific things with this one. So this site is the B3 district on this side, B3 commercial. It's adjacent to an R2 residential district. Right here is a parking lot. There's I think Lincoln Glass Company's here. There's of course houses here, and then a parking lot to the north.
Those houses to the north, are they, can you remind me of the zoning right there?
Those are zone B3 commercial, but yeah,
Thanks.
I believe those are actually houses. So this is the specific site plan. We actually had a slight revision on the site plan we received this morning. The building's still within the same building envelope and everything. It moved a little bit over here from the one that's in your guys' packet. So a couple things with this one. They are utilizing a shared access drive here. This is an existing gravel driveway. We're requesting that an easement be obtained for this area here and that area be paved. And then this is a commercial district next to a residential district, so there are some enhanced landscape screening design standards associated with that. So we're asking that they do that screening. From a technical standpoint, the screening is 60% screen from a plane 0 to 10 feet. So we are requesting that screening as well. Do we have any questions?
You said the site plan had changed a little bit, but
Yeah.
not enough to warrant any change in the conditions?
No. So the way the notes are shown on the site plan, it says the building just can be anywhere within that building envelope shown on the site plan, and it moved a little bit. The building envelope didn't change or anything, so.
So it looks to me like it moved a little bit to the south too.
A little bit to the south and then a little bit to the east.
And Andrew, I think I know the answer to these, but I'm going to ask them anyways, just so we can confirm them on the record. So this is like the other buildings we're talking about, where we're not expecting a lot of traffic. So we're not expecting a lot of headlights and cars coming in that might be kind of the light light intruding on the lot next door. And also, we don't expect that this building is going to be creating a lot of noise. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions for Andrew? Thank you. Applicant?
Good afternoon again. Mark Palmer with Jeff Kinney from Allo Communications. In this location, Mr. Walmsley's behind us, and he'll testify on his concerns. And we have been communicating with him. One of the reasons for the building to shift and to move back into that southern portion of the property was he alerted us that his property to the east, I don't know if it's on the historic register, but it's of historic significance. And so one of the things we wanted to do was move our building further away from the street and just further away from the view corridor of that building, of his building. That's basically the reason for the change. This is a tricky one for us to blend the building in with neighboring buildings because there's about every type of building all the way around it. But we are open if there is something that needs to be done, a different color or something to change it. We've proposed a standard brick. I mean, this will be a bricked building and will be of a color that we can hope that blends in with the neighborhood. But we agree to the conditions of approval and are available for any questions.
Any questions?
Can you talk a little bit about the landscaping and what, like, specifically is in place there?
Yeah, there's an existing grouping of trees along this southern area of the lot, and we were looking to enhance that landscaping up to the north and something in the front. There's also a chain link fence that runs around this whole property line. We were avoiding that at the moment and just keeping that in place as we are utilizing. This is basically a gravel lot today. We are going to utilize that north access point. We will pave that. We need to increase our landscaping. I hadn't realized that we are B2 and we need to follow a little higher standard on that, so we will be providing more landscaping.
And was that fence there, or are you guys putting that in?
That fence is there. There's an existing chain link fence.
My other question was, from the street, is there, I think the door is not there, is there anything on that wall other than just a blank wall?
Just the
Faces
doors.
the street?
They're not on the
Would they be?
street.
Yeah, if you're looking from
If I'm standing on Garfield, yeah.
Garfield, you'd see the doors.
Okay, so the
You'd
doors
look
are
at
facing the
basically
street
that.
on Garfield?
Yes.
It's a single door.
Okay, okay.
Any other questions? Thanks, gentlemen. Is there anyone here wishing to testify in support of this item?
Sure, we're in support, we're just questions.
Okay. Could you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Rex Walmsley, this is Robert Walmsley. We own the property next door. It's a historic house, built in 1892. We put a lot of money to renovate it.
What's your address?
Yes.
The address, I live there currently, and it's 1721 Garfield Street.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you look at it, I mean, it's a really nice house in a neighborhood that we're trying to bring back. And that house ties in, we think, nicely with the antique malls and stuff. Just some concerns that we have, and maybe we can work through them. One of the problems this property has next to us, this parking lot, is people have used it as a public restroom behind Lincoln Glass. One of the reasons, and they've come through that property and they broke into our house several times. They broke into our garage, which we just renovated. But one of the advantages to having the open parking lot is, you know, people can at least see them when they're urinating on the wall, which they do, or they wander through there and do whatever, or deal drugs there. If we put a building there, then what you've done is just screen them, and they're just going to go behind the building because it's an unmanned building. So our first concern, if we're going to put a building like this that's not manned, we think it should be fenced to try to keep people from wandering behind it, because it's just a natural barrier. You can go there, you'll watch people walk around Lincoln Glass going over to the Russ's Market, and they use it as a public toilet. And it's gonna be worse because it's screened, so they can walk behind it and do their drugs or whatever. The other thing, we were hoping, try to improve the neighborhood. We noticed that it's not irrigated grass that's going in there, which means when it gets hot, it's gonna die, and you're gonna look like maybe weeds growing in a lot around a concrete building. It would be nice if they're gonna go in to be good neighbors that they at least irrigate it and then mow it and landscape it. The trees that they put up, actually we are not in favor of that because we like to have our house showing into the historic district because it's a historic house, so we think that's just a nice thing for the neighborhood. Lighting, if they put lighting, we'd prefer not to be just bright lights shining out. There's no one in the building. On the other hand, if you don't have a fence around it or something, just, a camera, believe me, they will use that property, if you're familiar with our neighborhood, as a public toilet and for do drugs and whatever. I mean, we've had shootings down there, as you know. So we're trying to bring the neighborhood back, but there has to be some things done, I think, around this building to limit a little bit of the access to it in the rear. It needs to be properly landscaped and maintained. It is next to a residential neighborhood. We like how they said they'd move the building back. That's great. We're not against it particularly. I mean, it's a commercial lot, but we do feel that if you're going to put something there long-term, then you have to look at how that building and how that lot is going to affect the residences that are, ours right next door, but others across the street too. So Rob, any other thought you have? He lives there.
Yeah, I mean, the other concern that I think we had was, again, size-wise, they say that it's not, can I use this as well? It's, because this is the building here that it's shown. I don't know if that's the actual size, but this is actually.
Project. Oh, there it is.
Rob, can I get your last name, please?
Yes, Walmsley, W-A-M-S-L-E-Y.
Okay, thank you. You did say that. Thank you.
And this is a 3-car, I mean, it was actually a carriage stall at one point, but that holds three vehicles. So I'm looking at that thinking that's actually comparable to somewhat of a 3-car garage. So it's not necessarily, from this drawing at least, just a small garden shed. I mean, in my mind, that's what this little box is, a small garden shed towards the back. I also have an image of the house itself, if you're interested in just kind of seeing the work and whatnot that we've done. It's just on my phone. I'm not sure if you can see it. But yeah, 1892 Victorian, and we've put in a lot of money. So we're just trying to make sure that whatever the structure is, if it is a building like this, that it hopefully can kind of blend in a little bit more with the neighborhood. I'm not sure how, but maybe the architects can come up with a way to make it look more like a carriage house or something that kind of ties in with the antique shops or something. Again, we're not opposed to it by any means. We would hate to see this lot just
for 50 years become nothing but a graffiti crime thing next to our house.
And it does sound dramatic, but I do live there, and you do see people in that corner as much as they can, especially if there is a smaller building here. I mean, they will use this space for whatever. And even if there is cameras, that sort of thing, I don't know if it's manned at all times that somebody is watching that footage, or it's just there in case somebody has tampered with their building.
And they're going to be worried about their building. They're going to be worried about enforcing the law. That's not their job to enforce the law when people use it as a public restroom.
And again, this fence doesn't go all the way through here, the existing chain link fence. It's not continuous. Some of these trees are just, back here at least, I think that at some point the other neighbor, when there was a house there, they put these trees and they're kind of just, honestly, they shed a lot, and I can't tell if it would just be better to get rid of them and plant new ones and put a nicer fence in just to continue it. Again, we're just trying to find out what the best option is for.
And to be honest, if it's fenced, maybe the best thing to do, because those are just trees that grew up in the fence line, it would be to take those trees down and then fence the facility. I just think longer term for the neighborhood, it's better. I mean, I'm not into fences and that kind of thing, but if you've been there, and I was there when we fixed this house up from the county board said tear it down. We didn't tear it down. We kept the history there. It's without a doubt, it's the nicest house in that part of town. We want it to tie in with the antique mall. We want it to look nice. We want them to be a good neighbor if they're coming in with grass that's actually green and not a weed patch. Because it's going to be there, like you said, for 50 years, and it's going to affect the neighborhood and that little antique mall and everything else that we're trying to do to bring it back. So, we're willing to work with them. We're not against it, but we do live next to it, and we're going to be living with them for a while. So.
Could you please trace on that picture where you would like the fence to be? Are
Yeah.
you talking about bringing the chain link fence all around, or are you talking about coming closer to the structure and fencing that in?
Well, for safety reasons, I mean, I think the fencing would have to go from this back corner all the way around and then over.
With a gate.
I mean,
I
that's-
just think that's.
And are you thinking a taller fence? I mean, I think the one that's there is about waist high, isn't
Yeah.
it?
And it's not in the best of shape either.
Okay.
The one that there's kind of fallen down. It's better than nothing.
Right.
But they will come.
But if we were asking you what would, increase your comfort level, it sounds like maybe getting rid of some of those front trees and then a fence. I'm just curious, are you talking about extending like a waist-high fence, or are you thinking it needs to
Something
be a
they
tall
can't
fence?
easily get over. I don't think they want them in their building, in the back of the building. On the other, we're not talking about some with
Right, so
barbed
maybe
wire
like
over
4
the top,
foot.
but just something, and because of the type of people, they're not gonna put a lot of energy probably in jumping the fence.
Okay.
But if it's open, believe me, they will wander behind that building, and it's not their job.
Right.
Their security cameras to not make it a public toilet.
I mean, ideally, I don't think we would want a high chain link fence. I mean, that would also distract. I mean, whatever it is, I think.
Just something to make it difficult,
Just something,
not, right.
you know, yeah, it looks nice. but-
And I'm just curious, based on your experience, do you think like a sign on the back of that building saying, this area is under camera surveillance in addition to a camera, whether or not somebody is,
Right.
patrolling it all the time, do you think that would act as a deterrent?
I mean, I hope so. I think the thing is that people start to become aware that it might or might
Right.
not be. I mean, we've seen people drop off furniture there. Like, that's my biggest fear, is that it will just, behind this building specifically, will just become a dump for whatever.
But what would be sort of the backyard, basically,
Right,
is.
right. And I think that's the hard thing, is that as soon as people find out that it might not be, surveyed at all times, that it.
And is it just parking back there now?
Yeah, it's parking and boat storage. So at this point, it's not really adding to the neighborhood per se either. But again, at least it's just a green field that it's open. So like he said, you can see if somebody is trying to get into your backyard, into your garage. So our fear, we just want to try to keep it, if that visibility is lost, how can we, maintain safety, I guess? Because if it was a house, then people would maybe be a little bit, think differently because somebody would be there at all times. But if they know this is not a manned building, that's our fear, is that somebody would.
So if it were a fence, it would have to be transparent, or you would lose visibility and then you'd be back to the, so.
Right. So we're kind of, yeah, it's a bit of a catch-22. So yes.
So transparent?
Transparent, but a fence, yes, yeah.
If we were to ask you, like, the best location for this building on this site, what do you think moving it back is the best? Do you wish it were further back towards the alley a little more?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know legally what you can get away with.
Right,
but
neither do
if
I.
it
That's
was-
why I
Yeah.
I'm going to let them
if
sort
it was
that out.
connected to Lincoln Glass, that would be great. But I'm not sure that that's an option,
Right.
just for fire code and whatnot.
But do you think further back actually would be more of a deterrent or less?
Further back with fence.
Yeah, because in that way, at least the visibility is still there.
Through, like, to your backyard area?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think if we move it closer, then, then we'd have to look at this beautiful building.
Anyone else? Any other questions?
And the other thing, when we read up on it, they said the size of building could change. I mean, we don't know what that means. I mean, it could end up being a huge building next door, so maybe the further back it goes, the better. I mean, if it was a next door house, you'd still be limited there, but it would, since it's not very aesthetic, no matter what you do, it looks like a concrete bunker with a brick facade on
But
it.
the security view that you keep talking about, I want to make sure I understand it. The view you're talking about, is that the view from 17th towards your house,
Yes,
sort of
towards the side of the
into
house.
your backyard?
Correct.
That's what you would love to have at least partially?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
The other thing, they said there's no noise, and, other than the generator, that's right. There's no humming or noise coming out of it. And then, and again, just subtle lighting. We have cameras on, but maybe with a fence. I mean, it blends into a residential neighborhood. We think it'd be a good thing. We'd like to see some irrigation, so when it gets August, the grass is green. We got green grass in our residential neighborhood. If it's gonna be there 50 years, you like to think it's a nice addition for whatever else goes in. And if you don't do it now, it never will be honest, never will happen. So that's just some of our concerns. We're not against it at all. It just is what it is. If you're there, you would know what it is.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Anything else, Rob?
Is there anyone else here wishing to testify in support of this item? Is there anyone here wishing to testify in opposition to this item?
My glasses on, so I can't see you guys. So what happens is when I see you, then I get angry. Terry Pope Gonzalez, I am the founder of South Salt Creek Area Neighborhood Association. Steve and PC are South Salt Creek organization. I am 349 South First Street. 20 years ago, 20 stinking years ago, we were up here in front of Planning Commission, and they made all these promises because it was open fields. All these promises they made. I'm zoned residential. Residential. Now my property was pristine. Not good, not great, not excellent, pristine. Now I'm on my 8th dead tree. Now my husband's family got our property in 1949. We are also historic district. What else are we? Now see, I'm not one of you, am I? Nope. I'm from Denver, Colorado. My husband's one of you. He was born in that house April 3rd, 1953. Graduated Lincoln High, 1971. Now all these promises get made. All these promises get made. And who watches it out? Now here, he can have, and I've never met these people. Okay, I don't even know where 17th and Garfield is. I know where the Lincoln Auto Glass is. I think that's what they're talking about. So there must be a store over there. I am First and L. Now, when you guys, and you're gonna vote however, you've already decided how you're gonna vote, because that's how this town works. But you remember, they live there. They have to put up with the crap. I said crap, I didn't say crap, because I'm not supposed to cuss. My brother said I cannot cuss, because Lincoln, Nebraska cannot handle cussing. That's why you got rid of that cussing coach. Yes, I am Italian, and we cuss. So I'm supposed to behave. Now, I was with babies at their ball games. That's what this is, okay? Steve Larrick calls me, see if I can come. I'm supposed to really be here for something else. But if somebody would have stood up 20 years ago and opposed the stuff they were doing to us, we wouldn't be in the mess we are. Now, I'm not supposed to have tears. You're supposed to be telling me what time it is. The mess in my house. You people caused the death of my father-in-law. So I didn't think I had to look at you again until we were in court. When I came into the Planning Commission, when did I see you? You, the director, when did I see you? On the 18th. I came in to get all your names because you're gonna have subpoenas, because I'm gonna sue you all. So now you understand what you do to those people. You remember what you did to us. See, the reason our neighborhood is in the shape it's in is because of the concrete company, because of the businesses. We were a great little residential area. We were 7 blocks long, 2 blocks wide. And you people caused us to go through hell and back. So you understand, when you vote, you make sure you vote like it was your family. Now, I'm gonna go compose myself. I don't have a clue what you look like standing here. I see that you have a bright colored underneath on in white. I can't see your faces or your names. I really can't. If I take my glasses off, I can't see. Tell somebody thank you for the wheelchair, but I didn't have to have it this time, did I? Said going to anaphylactic shock because it's so poison over there. But I'm sure none of you really care. Just like you really don't care about these people standing up here. You act like you do. You know how I know you don't care? Pretend it's your house. How would you vote? Pretend it's your family. How would you vote? Thank you.
Is there anyone else here wishing to testify in opposition to this item? We have questions for staff. Come back up. Andrew. Kathy.
Andrew, I'm sure you heard what we were talking about in terms of the location of the house, and I do know this neighborhood well. I used to live in this neighborhood, and I eat right across the street all the time. Can you tell us about the setbacks and if it would be possible? I know there's no house behind it; it's a parking lot behind it. I'm just curious about if it is possible to move it back even further to allow that view from 17th to still help these folks, you know, keep the security that they're looking for?
Yeah, so as we can see on the graphic,
Hang on, it's
Just a
not
second.
up.
Yeah.
There you go.
This is actually in the B3 commercial district. And in the B3 district, there is no rear yard setback unless it's adjacent to residential. And there is a small corner of R2 here. So in that case, the rear yard would be 30 feet. And that's where the building's at right now, is 30 feet at the rear yard.
And is
setback.
that something that we can waive with a special permit or not?
I don't believe so. We could require a larger front yard. So right now they're showing the front yard is 20 feet. So technically the building envelope goes all the way up to 20 feet from the street. We could require that front yard to be bigger just to ensure that the building is not in that front yard or the front area. But in terms of moving it back, that 30 feet is as far back as we can go.
And there's no way for us to be able to make that more workable, as far as you know? No,
I don't believe so, no.
Method that we can use?
Me and Steve were just talking about that, and we didn't think so.
Andrew, I just wanted to verify, we have screening requirements for projects such as this. If it's not trees, it's going to be a fence. Is it going to be 6 foot or 10 foot?
So on an invisible plane, 0 to 10 feet, it has to screen 60%. So a 6-foot fence would screen 60% of that.
A chain link fence would not be adequate screening according to our...
No, it wouldn't. Chain link wouldn't be. It'd be some sort of opaque type, like a wood fence or something like that.
And it has to screen of the entire lot line, or?
Yeah, it's supposed to be divided evenly across the entire lot line. That's how the design standards are written. So.
Any other questions?
I have just a follow-up question on the setback. So the building on this drawing has been moved back to the rear yard setback. Does the utility generator and the utility transformer have to also be inside of the buildable area, or can they be, it looks like on this drawing, I can't read it, but I think one of those things is already located outside of the buildable area?
It's not.
It's not? It's still within?
On the revised, they moved it to the side.
On the revised, there's a transformer here that would be in that rear yard.
Okay, so the transformer is in the rear yard, and that's
Yes.
okay? Okay, I just want to
building.
clarify that.
Yep.
Okay, so you have pushed it back as far as you can with all of the associated things, and, okay, good.
Any other questions for Andrew? Kathy?
So when we run into a situation like this, is it possible to request additional signage, something to help, alleviate the concern that we're creating sort of a area where people can commit crime?
Well, I mean, I think the question with this site is that whether this Allo building is actually creating any additional crime or anything like that. And forcing requirements on a facility where they're not actually creating that impact, I'm not completely sure we can do that.
Anything else? Thank you. Got a rebuttal?
All right, I think we've got some information that will help. One of the things, just the size of the building. It's smaller than what we showed originally. The building's actually 11 by 21 feet. So I've marked this up here on red, but we're actually able to push that building back further because it's just not as long. It's 9 feet shorter than it was, and the 30-foot dimension was this north-south dimension. So the actual building can go back, or the front of the building can be back a little further than what's shown on even the latest plan that we provided to Andrew this morning. On top of that, just discussing with the Walmsleys, the fencing, we'd propose a fence that basically cordons off this area and controls that area. And the specifics of the type of that fence, I think we're probably looking at a 6-foot wooden fence that's not transparent. It basically would create this as would have a gate, obviously, to get back in there. It would be locked, and we'd also have our security cameras that can, I think we can probably have a few more set up just to make sure that there's nothing that's going on there. And I think, Jeff, you can elaborate on the security cameras trigger when there's any motion or activity.
Right.
Or so.
Motion-activated cameras was the design anyway, but I think Mark is correct in saying let's add a few more. The Walmsley's concerns, the gentleman was correct in saying I think we're kindred souls here in those concerns. The things that they've described is absolutely not what we want to do in the neighborhood. With regard to the fence, then, I think we'll cooperate with the Walmsleys as to what is going to be visually appealing. Our goal is to blend in and absolutely not stand out or draw attention, and certainly not create a security risk. So the Walmsleys' firsthand knowledge of what we're up against and the concerns that may not be obvious to us just looking at the site are very much appreciated.
And just one additional, with their desire to keep this building visible, we would be looking to not install trees on this front and do a lower level of shrub, something that's, doesn't avoid any visibility of their building, impose on their building.
Questions?
Oh, sorry, irrigation was brought up. These facilities do not have a water service, and that's, they only have natural gas and power, and so we do not have water. We don't need water, and so our intent is to contract with a landscape company to actually seed this with some kind of resilient. You can get some good seed mixes that are resilient, and then have
or a xeriscaping type option, that you would do in a is it mulch, is it rock, is it something that looks attractive, that looks residential, that doesn't have the requirement for water, but water's not good for our purpose.
But we would be contracting with someone and have maintenance on it, so it's not going to sit there. And if that chain link fence is, we would just keeping it in place to keep everything in place. We can remove that in the front just to open the front of the area up so it looks like a front yard.
Any questions?
I think the last
Tracy?
concern that I heard the neighbors mention was lighting. Can you tell us kind of your lighting plans for this area?
The current plan, although we can adjust if the Walmsleys have a point of view, is typically there's no need for exterior lighting. Lighting only comes on if you detect an intrusion or if you've manually turned it on because you have a technician at the site.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Just would the sort of motion censored light, would that come on the back of the building as well, or is it just kind of on the entrance side?
It doesn't come on when motion is triggered. It only comes on if you manually decide to do so. The cameras are such that they can see in the dark.
Okay, got it.
But it might be something you'd be open to.
Yeah, what you want to avoid is, and I think the reason for this technology is every time the wind blows, you don't want lights coming on and creating this on-off kind of distraction.
Anything else? Thanks, gentlemen. I'd entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion?
Oh, sure. This is just great every time we have an applicant that's willing to work with the neighbors, and I think everybody's interest is to have this safe, secure, not outdoor toilet facility there, and so I really appreciate you guys working it out, and I think it's going to be an improvement to the neighborhood. You'll have more security there, and I think this is a great development.
I agree with Janelle. I think I compliment you for working with the applicants and continue to work together on this, and it'll be a benefit for both of you.
I just wanted to thank the Walmsleys for investing in the neighborhood. I wish there were more people like you that would invest in up-and-coming neighborhoods and be willing to do that and to live there. That's awesome. And I just want to also thank the applicant for working with the neighbors and being very sensitive to the needs.
Okay.
I'm just going to echo that. I'd like to thank Aloe. I think you're showing us time and again that you're being a really great partner and sensitive to each location, and that means a lot. Also going to thank the Walmsleys. Near South is near and dear to my heart, and I'd also like to thank you for taking the time to come down today. I know sometimes you have to miss work to come down to these meetings, and it does mean a lot to us to hear from the public, so thank you so much.
I just want to say the same thing. Thank you both for being good neighbors, and I think the neighborhood is better because of your investment in this historic house, and I really, really appreciate it. I hope people will follow in your footsteps.
Jerry, please call the vote.
Beecham?
Yes.
Cornelius?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Lust?
Yes.
Sunderman?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Hove?
Yes.
Motion carried, 8-0. Okay, I'm going to call item 3.4, which is special permit number 16016 to allow for a rock/concrete crusher on property generally located at 431 A Street. This is, staff recommendation is conditional approval, and this is final action by the Planning Commission unless appealed to the city clerk within 14 days. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on this application?
I see none.
Andrew Theroff, planning staff. This is an application at Capital Concrete, which is at 431 A Street. Just to give a little context on the map, we're between A Street. A Street's up here, South Street's down here. This would be about 4th Street is what we're looking at here. It's in a primarily industrial area. This is all zoned industrial. There's residential houses up around here. This is Sawyer Snell. Sherman Field would be just off the map here. And then this is the firefighter training facility, and then there's a large pile of like city concrete rubble right here too.
Can you show us the park, Andrew?
Right there.
I'm sorry I missed it when you were pointing.
Oh, okay.
You said there was a large pile of concrete, city-owned?
Yeah, so this is all public land. There's the firefighter training facility, and then there's a pile that I guess the roads department uses or something. There's a large pile of concrete. That's the city's right here.
It is the city's concrete.
Yeah, it's the city's, yeah, and that's separate from this application.
Okay.
So on the Capital Concrete site, there's an existing large pile of concrete rubble here too. So the applicant is proposing to bring in a mobile crusher, crush the concrete, remove it from the site. We're looking at this essentially as a big cleanup project. This would be a temporary special permit. It would only run through August 1st. They would be limited to 15 days of crushing. So the idea is that there's this large pile on the site, and by August 1st, it'll be gone. The city, we see that as a positive. This whole area is in the floodplain. It's also in the Salt Creek storage area, so removing fill out of that is definitely a big positive, and bringing in a mobile crusher to do that is probably the quickest and easiest way to do so. And I know the crusher has a permit from the health department, and I think Chris will talk a little bit about that.
Quick question, are we going to get rid of the city concrete pile as part of this too? Does the city have any plans to do that, or no?
Unfortunately not, no.
Is the city concrete pile in the floodplain as well?
Steve Hendrickson with the Planning Department. I believe what you're seeing is the fire department's training facility, and they have several things here like rail cars and a pile of concrete to help simulate that there's been an accident, a building collapse. That's our understanding of why this pile is here. So the city doesn't have any interest.
It's intentional.
It's intentional. It is a part of them training for appropriate various measures that they have. We just wanted to point out that it was not all parkland between the industrial land to the east of the railroad tracks and the park itself, that the city did have this fire department training facility, and we assume that that is a good part of their training that they do, and it has been there for quite some time.
What? I'm sorry, Steve, what is just north on the picture you're showing us at the top? Yeah, is that a basketball court?
Parking.
Oh, it's parking.
For the baseball.
Thanks.
Is this area that he just had on the screen, is that in the floodplain?
Yeah, so it's this blue area, which is almost the whole map, is all floodplain and Salt Creek storage area. Salt Creek is just off to the side here.
Anything else?
Talk to me about noise and dust and health concerns.
Sure. Chris Schroeder, Health Department. The crusher that is slated to come onto the site does currently hold a construction permit from our office. And with that, they're subject to complying with federal and local air pollution regulations. and those really focus on controlling dust out of the crushing equipment. There's opacity requirements. That's basically the amount of dust coming out of the crusher, and also drop points on site. And they also are subject to complying with off-site visible dust emissions as well. And then also you mentioned noise. They are subject to complying with our local noise code. So those are the primary requirements that would affect off-site impacts.
And so with those codes, do they differ at all when we have an area adjacent to residential versus an area that's surrounded by agricultural or other industrial?
All right, the air pollution codes do not, or regulations. The noise code does. When you look at the noise code, it talks about the receiving land use of the complainant. So if the complainant is zoned residential, there are stricter noise standards they would be subject to. If they're commercial, higher again. And then industrial has a higher limit as well. And then ag has a higher limit than residential.
Okay.
In the noise code.
And so as part of them getting the permit, it's already been reviewed that the noise concerns would meet the requirements for being?
Not as part of the air pollution permit, no. Or their construction permit. Our noise program works on a complaint basis. If we get a complaint, we actually have staff that go out and take readings to determine compliance with the noise code.
So the reason that the noise requirements are different for this and for Aloe is because of the zoning. Am I so?
It would be the zoning of the complainant.
But I mean, so here it says for this application, it says between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and then for instance in that case of Aloe, it says 7 a.m. to 6 a.m. Monday through Friday. So is that because one is zoned residential and one is?
It'd be the adjacent zoning, correct?
Okay, I get it.
Just out of curiosity, why does the concrete have to be crushed to be moved out of there?
Well, I don't think it'd have to be crushed. This would just be the simplest way to do it. I think is the answer to that.
We'll call you up in a little bit.
Yeah, I think they could probably answer that, the company.
Andrew, can you tell me, so they have 15 days that they can run the crusher. Do they have to be right next to each other? Could it be one day this month, one day the next month, and 5 days the month after that?
Well, in theory it could be, but they're bringing in the mobile crusher, so I mean it wouldn't make sense for them to move it in and out. I think the applicant can flesh this out a little more, but I think really it's more like a 5-day process max. The 15 days is just contingencies if there's breakdowns or something happens. So no, I guess there's no specific requirement. It has to be 15 consecutive days, but
okay,
logically I think it would work out that
Kathy?
way.
I just want to clarify, and this cleanup it's a voluntary. They're not in violation of anything with these piles, right? They're just cleaning up the site, or is that incorrect? Do they have to clean up the site?
There's no enforcement action right now tied to that. It's not clear whether or not some of those piles were permitted. Building and Safety did some research, and there was some floodplain permits, but we're not sure if it's for these exact piles where they are right now. But this is voluntary. They approached us with this.
Anything else?
Yes.
Michael?
Do we know the distance to the nearest residential use?
Yes. So the crushing is in the middle here, and the nearest house is about 800 feet from here.
I did some looking, but I didn't click on every property. The ones off to what would be the west side, are those mostly just storage garages? They're not houses? I mean...
Right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is an industrial area. There's some self-storage. I think there's some like auto repair shops and things like that. As far as I know, there's no houses there. At least this map kind of more clearly shows the zoning. I mean, it's all zoned for industrial, so.
Chris, I have one more question.
Sure.
Out of curiosity, do our air pollution requirements have any impact based on wind velocity? I'm thinking about when we had so much smoke up here from Kansas, burning in Kansas may not impact us during certain weather, but it does during other. Is that a factor at all, or are they pretty much?
It is a factor when you look at the language in our fugitive dust regulations. It talks about reasonable control measures. And what I mean by that is that we have a very windy day, and the source is using reasonable measures like applying water but there is some visible offsite emissions. We would take the high wind speeds into account and wouldn't necessarily, file or issue a violation for that. If they're doing everything they can, then we look at, weather as a factor for the visible fugitive dust.
But so we're not saying you can't do it on when the wind is this high. It's kind of the opposite. We're saying
True, there aren't
we'll be
any-
more flexible if it is a windy day. We realize you're violating.
That's correct.
Okay.
Anything else?
I'm just curious about the shape of the application area. Why do we have that little indentation in the middle of the top rectangle?
There's some odd right-of-way areas going on in this site, and actually, here this is actually a piece of non-vacated public right-of-way, and there's some old roads that were never actually built, and just kind of random pieces of right-of-way out there right now. So
it's primarily carved out because of city right-of-way, not because of
that's their
different-
property boundary, is what that is.
Guess that's it. Thank you. Applicant?
How's it going? I'm Ryan with TNT Earth Moving. This is Nate Peterson. He's with Infinity. He's one of the investing principals.
Could you give us your addresses, please?
We're at 7701 Cornhusker Highway.
Home addresses or business?
That's fine.
7701 Cornhusker Highway.
Ryan, what's your last name?
Straight.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, just to answer basically any of your questions that you might have had, the noise, in all honesty, shouldn't be any higher than the actual concrete trucks that are in there rolling in and out all the time. We actually have purchased specific blow bars, which are the mechanics of the machine that break up the concrete. That is actually more quiet. They're ceramic blow bars, so it allows it to be more quiet. And then for the dust control and everything, there is a wet suppression system on the machine itself. The customers have agreed to supply water for us to put on the concrete as it's being crushed. The only area that you're going to have any dust coming out of is the initial drop into the hopper, where the dirt and everything that's around the concrete is going to hit the air and fly up. In all honesty, it's probably not any more dirt than the concrete trucks rolling in and out on that property. We have had our opacity or VE testing performed. We should get the results of that next week, and it'll be submitted to the health department, both health department, Lincoln Lancaster, and the Nebraska State DEQ. I guess I don't really have any other comments to say. Main reason we're crushing, you asked that question. Basically, this world is gone. Everybody wants to go green these days. And leftover concrete, unfortunately, nobody's perfect. There's always overs that come back to the concrete plant, and they have nothing to do with it, so they pile it up. Well, with us coming in, the only other option they have is take it to a landfill. And concrete doesn't biodegrade, and it creates a lot of voided space in a landfill because it doesn't lay perfectly flat. So by us crushing this, it allows to be a renewable aggregate that can be used for city road base or pipe bedding for the city water pipes. Excuse me. So I mean, it's all meant to be to benefit the city.
Yes.
And how many days do you anticipate you'll actually be crushing? Well,
like we put 15 days for unforeseen circumstances, but the tonnage amount that they have there and the capacity of our machines, we should be able to crush it all within 5 days.
Okay.
But like I said, there's always unforeseen circumstances that you can't control. So that's why we're asking for 15, just to be on the safe side.
Okay.
Anything else? Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here wishing to testify in support of this item? Is there anyone here wishing to testify in opposition to this item?
Afternoon. My name is P.C. Meza. I live at 536 C Street. I've lived in the South Salt Creek neighborhood since 1961. That's a long time. And I've seen a lot of changes in our neighborhood. I went to school there at Park School since I was a little guy, all but 2 years of it. Anyway, I've seen a lot of changes in the neighborhood, and I'm sure you've probably had an earful of what's going on down there. We're close to the floodplain and everything else. There's another concrete crushing operation down in our neighborhood. I think you guys have all heard about that. And I believe at the time when that permit was issued, that was also a temporary permit. It's still going on, I believe. My concern with this kind of operation is it's, like the gentleman was saying, it is a renewable resource. So what's to stop them from resubmitting the permit, bringing in concrete to our neighborhood, and using it as a place where they crush it and then make a profit on it and moving it out, if you understand what I'm saying. The problem I see in South Salt Creek neighborhood is, it's the oldest neighborhood in Lincoln, by the way. I'm sure you guys know that. And it's been asked so many times to shoulder the burden for a lot of these things here for Lincoln. I'm talking specifically one, Timco, great company, and that's the problem. It's a big company. It's grown quite a bit. We have a lot of traffic with trailers and everything else through our neighborhood. Truck traffic tears up the roads, noise, close to a school. I mean, it's a great business, but not in our neighborhood. This also, great idea, renewable resource, but not in our neighborhood. Who wants a cement crusher next to their house or next to their, just north of A Street, all residential? The city worked with our neighborhood to put the bridge in to make it accessible for the people on the western part to get into Lincoln. I mean, we were part of that. And granted, Capital is there. They have the right to be there. They've been there for a long time. But why pile up more for our neighborhood? Our neighborhood, I mean, there's people there that live there because they want to live there, myself included. There's people that's all they can afford, they live there. And Lincoln, and I've noticed when you were discussing the other permits, you were all concerned about the quality of life for the residents. I'm sure that's what all the questions were about. Graffiti, public restrooms, stuff like that. So why isn't there more concern for our neighborhood, a quality of life for the people that are either there because they want to be there, or people that are there because that's all they can afford there? It's a transition, but whatever. Why make it worse than it is now? We worked with the city to get the quiet zone in. I mean, that is a godsend. The neighborhood has improved so much since that quiet zone. Now they're talking about another quiet zone. That'll be even better. There hasn't been any incidences because of it. It was a great idea. So now we're going to get some more noise in there. I mean, got the railroads out of there. Now let's get some noise in there, because by golly, South Salt Creek community can't exist without being that sort of a neighborhood. And we're so close to the south downtown development, and I get it. We're not included because we're in the floodplain. I mean, that's a fact of life. But at the same time, why is it that most cities, good cities, always seem to have that little part of their areas just surrounding the better parts of town that are left to deteriorate? And that's what's happening with our neighborhood. Not just this, other things, but right now we're just talking about this. And I think if they have an operation at 77th Street, they could easily truck it over there, grind it up over there. Noise, there is no barrier for noise. I mean, it's zoned industrial. We're zoned light industrial, I believe, but residential. How are you going to keep the noise down? Just because the area is enclosed, it says industrial, well, the neighbor's going to hear it. My neighbor likes to play his music pretty loud. He says he's within his rights, and I suppose he is. That still bothers me. Anyway, I'm opposing it, and it's nothing against the concrete company. I'm sure they have their business, but we also have our concerns as residents of the neighborhood, and I wish you'd consider that. I mean, if you want it behind your backyard, well, you're better people than I am, because I live a few blocks away, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to hear it. When Gooch's Mill was doing dog food, pet food a few years back, there's quite a distance away. We could smell it. And so the dust and the noise, it's going to carry. We still have dirt roads in our neighborhood. And we have kids that are out there playing and stuff like that. I hate to be the one to say, think of the kids, but yeah, think of the kids. I mean, they're out there, they're going to be breathing the stuff, windy days, it doesn't matter. It's still going to happen. So, keep that in mind, and thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So the applicant has said.
I've heard, I understand it's going to be a temporary thing.
Yeah.
I've heard that. Like, that's what I'm saying. In our neighborhood, temporary things seem to stick around.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm going with this. So we've heard 5 to 15 days.
Could turn into years.
So are you saying if you could get just a guarantee that it'll be 5 to 15 days, would it be okay, or are you afraid it's a slippery slope?
Ironclad.
An ironclad.
But I don't see it that way. I see variances because we live in a floodplain, and there's no there's no way someone in our neighborhood can put up a garden shed because of the impermeable surfaces. But then again, we can still have an arena, and we can still have development in the down in the lower yard, down in the Haymarket.
So would it be
variances, business above residence? That's what I'm concerned about.
So would it be appropriate to say your word? It would be a slippery slope
Yes.
that they would renew.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify in opposition to this item?
My name is Steve Larrick, and I was the president of the Neighborhood Association maybe 25 years ago when we were told we would get a temporary batch plant right behind Terry Pope Gonzalez's home. And we were opposed to it, but at least it was a temporary plant. It just got bigger and bigger and bigger. So I don't know what to say. I agree. If we can guarantee that it's 5 to 15 days, I think we can live with it. But we don't want to go through this again. Over these years, we've seen many people die in that neighborhood from difficulty breathing, and as well as pets. You probably hear about Terry's pets that have died and the trees that are dying right now. So, yeah, this is an incompatible use for that that land. But again, if it's a 5 to 15, if it can be guaranteed, and then I know Capital has been a good neighbor to our neighborhood, and so I have good respect for Capital Concrete, and yeah, to start a new business of crushing is incompatible, because we're right across 431 A Street is the address, and all along A Street is housing, homes, very close to each other, one after another. And that was the way it was along First Street before we brought in this temporary batch plant. And so we don't want to see this happen again. It's a crime. And so also, you know, in our floodplain, the ice rink, I don't know if I think you probably had a chance to vote on that. We brought in 35 acre feet of fill in an area our neighborhood had worked with the city for decades to bring in new flood storage. And Mayor Wesley agreed to provide a little more flood storage than we really needed, because he didn't even know then that there was going to be all this development in the arena area. And but just, not 3 years ago, the city officials, through their wisdom, have agreed to fill in that 35 acre feet of flood storage, build an ice rink, and then within a year, our neighborhood floods again for the first time in over 60 years. So, it's just like, why? But yeah, I hope we can guarantee that this would be a temporary thing. And I don't know if it's really true, where the concrete could be moved out, just so we avoid getting the precedent of having rock crushing and concrete crushing right in the residential area. But anyway, I'm just really concerned that we need to know our history and not make the same mistakes over and over again. And so, okay, thank you.
Steve, could I get your address, please?
Yeah, 920 South 8th.
Thank you.
And one thing about the neighborhood, I think a lot of new families are moving into that area because they want to be part of the whole bike network. We're very close to bike trails, and you can just hop on the trail and go down into Kansas or go to Omaha from our trail system. And people want smaller homes and live more simply, live close to work, don't have long commutes, living out on the edge of town and, you know, needing all this highway repair. It's a very ecological neighborhood, and people growing their own food in their yards, and I think it's just really a great place, and so we want to try to keep that getting better and better. So thank you for your support.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify in opposition to this item?
This is who I'm here for, Steve Lyric. The man came for me when he was going through cancer treatments. Terry Pope Gonzalez. We're not going to use the name Gonzalez because I've never been discriminated against in my entire life till I got that name. Okay, you guys have my cop here. See, they send me a detective to make sure I act right. Here is my filter, because I have to have a filter when I come in front of the city. Now these here, I'll explain those later. Here, you know what this is? This is everybody's 2 cents that I'm here for. Now, when I came and saw him, here's the date I got your names for the subpoenas, okay? On the 18th of April. I thought I wasn't going to have to look at any of you till we went in front of a federal court. Okay, let's take a look at this. You know what this is? Prestone Cold Start. Here's what it says. Prestone Cold Start fuel system antifreeze and cleaner is concentrated 2-in-1 winter fuel additive. The dual action formula, and it's got all this stuff on it that says poison, 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 poison. Because you know what happens in the concrete when you have an accident? All the antifreeze and diesel and gasoline hits it. Because see, that's what's gonna happen here. You know how I know? I've been living with a crusher, haven't I? Here, let's take a look and show you what it does. All of us end up with all these blisters. Do you see them? See, that's not something you can fake. You can't even fake going into anaphylactic shock. And you know the kicker? A joke's on Lincoln, Nebraska. That's been going on Lincoln, Nebraska for years. It's on 3rd and Q. See, the concrete company I have a hard-on for doesn't happen to be them. We know the company that I have a hard-on for. You, I need to say thank you to. I think you voted against when they were wanting to expand. So what you guys don't understand, I chose to live in my house. PC Meza there? My husband's grandmother brought him over. Steve Lyric, known him forever too. Now listen, see this stuff? This crap goes into the concrete. Now they're saying 5 to 15 days, really. You know what we were told 20 years ago was gonna be a temporary batch plant, still there. We were told in 2007 was just gonna be temporary mobile crusher. Well, guess what? It's not. It's still there. And you guys chose in September to say they could expand. Now these here, you know what these are? Because you're all worried about your landfill. You know what these are called? Dumbass dolls. You know why? Because I teach the little kids to tie knots. Because the little kids in my neighborhood come from poor families, don't they? Some of the richest one over there. See, I got 3 lots, and by the time I'm done, it's going to be the richest 3 lots Lincoln, Nebraska ever had. Now I'm sick and tired of you guys, all of you. Tried to get the mayor's office this morning to get me a wheelchair. What the hell's your mayor's office for? They're worthless. Now, you guys, I really don't know any of you, and right now I can't see any of you. I really can't. I don't have a clue what you look like. Now, here, I'm going to say your names to make sure that I got the right names, okay? Chris Hove, H-O-V-E, who's the chair, so I'm assuming that's you. Dennis Shear, who's vice chair, is on one side of you. I'm assuming it's him because you're a lady. I think you're a lady, right? Yeah. Okay, sorry. Kathy Beecham. Okay, Michael Cornelius. I haven't a clue who that is. Who is that? Okay. Tracy, C-O-R-R. Who's that? See, I can butcher. Listen, I can butcher things. I have no idea what that says. M-A-J-A-V Harris. Who is that?
That's me.
Okay. Janelle Lust. Okay. Lynn Sunderman. Okay. I have a sister named Lynn. Ken Weber. Who's that?
He's not here today.
Okay. Who are you?
Kathy Beecham.
Oh, okay, because you're safe. You have a pass. Because, see, you voted for me. And you know what? The reason I got so mad, just so you understand, they do send me my detective, Detective Chad Barrett, badge number 1101. We've been dealing together, what, 16 years? How long you know me? Since your baby was born. Now, I'm trying to behave. I'm really trying to behave. I am not from here, okay? So understand, when you make a vote, you have stolen my quality of life. Now my father lies dead because of all this. And I have dogs that are dead because of all this. I'm on my 8th dead tree. And my little property over there was pristine 20 years ago. So you understand, I'm having a real hard time with the city. David will tell you, I'm coming into a lot of money. More money than anybody in this town has ever seen. I didn't even know I was still in the running. You guys ever been to Bogota, Colombia? Should go. They have some of the prettiest emeralds you've ever seen. Now, I'm gonna go because my cop, he's out on hazard duty. So I'm gonna leave this, and honey, I didn't spit on anything, I promise, okay? Now, I'll be seeing you guys soon. Like I said, I thought we would be in federal court. But understand, I understand that you work for the mayor. What's it say here? Here, let me read this. 1 minute?
1 minute.
Okay. The Lincoln Lancaster Planning Commission is a body of 9 citizens appointed for the staggered 6-year terms by the mayor. I wonder if the mayor pays you out of his pocketbook, or is he paying you out of my pocketbook? With concurrence of the city council and the county board. The planning commission is charged by state and local law with advising the city council and the county board on a variety of planning and development matters. But I wonder who really pays your salary. I don't have a problem with you. You're not who I have a heart-on for. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify in opposition to this item? Do we have questions for staff? Yep. Come on back up, Andrew. You'll get your rebuttal after this. Yep.
Andrew, can you address terms of renewing a temporary thing like this? Can it be renewed? Is it a one-time, they have to go through the application process again, kind of thing?
Yes, this would expire. So, I mean, they could amend it, but we'd have to go through this whole process again.
Okay. And having been approved for one, does it predispose us to approve the next one, or do we take a second look and say, well, you know, the circumstances may have changed, that kind of thing?
Yeah, particularly for this site, it's not an ideal site for a rock crushing, mainly because it's entirely in the floodplain. So it was essentially, since this is temporary, we'll approve this. I mean, it'd be a much different type of review if we're saying a permanent rock crusher in the floodplain in the Salt Creek storage area would be a different situation.
Maya?
Just elaborating a little bit on what you just said. So you have Ben Higgins on the record saying that he's okay with this as long as it's for a very limited time. That note would likely follow into any other new application of a permit, and it would stand. And
yeah, I mean, we tried to make the staff report clear that this would only be supporting a temporary use. And yeah, like you said, Ben's comment was very specific that it's okay since it's temporary. So,
Kathy?
Following up on what Maya said, is there anything to prevent a concrete company from then, let's say they grind the concrete, get it out of there, from reacquiring more and then having to apply for another crusher? Are there any, codes or anything that control that, or not? Is that simply up to the concrete company?
Well, if they were to create new piles, it'd have to be permitted. Since the floodplain issue, it'd have to be permitted. I think the plan is after this, from now on, they'll be trucking that extra concrete off-site somewhere. They won't be piling it on their site, so it'll be taken somewhere else and crushed.
But But it would require a permit if they wanted to pile it up.
Yeah, if they wanted to pile more, not even to crush it, just to pile more concrete on the site, they'd have to have a floodplain fill permit.
And is that complaint driven? I'm assuming we don't go out and check it periodically unless we get a complaint about it.
Yeah, I mean, we're not driving by and with binoculars or anything. So.
Can you tell me more about that permit process? Is that something that comes through building and safety, or does it come through planning?
Floodplain?
If they want to put more.
That's through building and safety.
That was my question. If a floodplain permit is regulatory, it's a lot different than just coming to Planning Commission. There's a real
and again,
process there.
Yeah, if they were going to be crushing, that would be a special permit through us. But just to pile the stuff, that would be the floodplain permit.
Yeah.
Hey, Lynn.
And we're really just talking about, I heard the term overage, it's just what's left in the truck when they come back from a job site type thing.
Yeah.
They're not bringing in concrete, per se, to
No,
to pile
and
it.
Ryan can explain it better than I can, but essentially, yeah, when they measure out for the job, sometimes they have a little bit extra, so they bring it back and pour it out on the site.
So they got a better plan to take care of that stuff going forward.
From my understanding,
Probably
the extra will
cheaper
be
and
going
easier.
somewhere else instead of being put back on the site.
And if they wanted to be a company that brought it in and stored it and crushed it, that would require a whole set of permits in itself.
This permit right here.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Thanks, Andrew. Now you have.
Sorry for all the confusion. Ryan Strait again, TNT Earth Moving, 7701 Cornhusker Highway. And to answer their questions, yes, this is a very temporary thing, for multiple reasons. First of all, we don't want to go through this again. Secondly, our schedule with other customers and contracts that we have won't allow us to be there for very long. But then third, to answer your question, we have in our contract with Capital Concrete, because Capital Concrete's whole goal is to beautify that area, actually make it look better for the neighborhood. That's why they want to get rid of this pile. And as soon as we get rid of the pile, then they're going to actually landscape it, sod it, and make that back area look good. And we have in our contract for the next 3 years, which we could, depending on what you guys find, we can negotiate more or whatever. For the next 3 years, they're going to bring their concrete to our site. That way it is out of that neighborhood and still going for good use, but it's not affecting that neighborhood. Any other questions? I think I answered your question.
How hard would it be? I have a feeling it's going to be difficult, but what if you just moved the concrete as it is now to your plant to crush it at your plant?
Right now, with the amount of tonnage that they have, it'd be one heck of a feat. And like I said, that property, the way it's shaped and everything, it's actually pretty hard for us to even get our equipment in there to get this done. But it's more feasible to get our equipment in there and crush this first large amount and then get it out of there instead of trucking that whole thing, because you're talking a lot more money
Believe
spent.
it or not, I've hauled concrete out to your area, loaded it in the truck myself so that it could be crushed. So I'm familiar with how heavy we're talking here.
Yeah, and it is. And, like you said, concrete is not a perfect symmetrical size. So in dump trucks or side dumps, when you start dropping those large chunks in there, you don't get near as much in a truck, and it takes twice as many loads. So you're going to have a lot more truck traffic going right through downtown, stuff that you don't want to really impact the city with. And so that's, again, why we're proposing to just crush this one time there. And we have in the contract from that point on is as they get a dump truck load full, which, all they have is just an old, I don't even think it's a 10-yard dump truck, they're going to fill it up and bring it to us. So that way you don't have those large piles of concrete there anymore.
Max is 15 days.
Yes, yeah, max 15 days.
Anything else? Thank you. I'd entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Discussion?
I looked at the map a little bit, and I see that the site where this is going to be going on is fairly distant from residential. I couldn't find a residence within 800 feet. For what it's worth, I'll trust the expertise of the planning staff on that. I can't speak to whatever permit was issued 20 years ago, and I think that's kind of a distraction from what's going on here right now. Given that this is a special permit with a very short duration and a fixed duration of 15 days, I can't, and given the goal of the project ultimately, I would find it difficult not to vote in favor of this. I would find it more difficult to vote for extensions of the special permit, however.
Yeah, I think what we have here is a company that's trying to be a good neighbor and cleaning up what is a problem and getting it out of there and making sure the problem doesn't come back. And I definitely am not in favor of in any way penalizing a company by not letting them clean up something that will be an ultimate improvement in the neighborhood. So I'm going to support the application.
Anyone else? Kathy?
I think, what we're seeing here really is the result of having residential up against industrial and the challenges that can pose. For me, I'm going to support this. The key reason is, as Lynn was pointing out, that they're taking steps not only to clean this up, but to prevent this from being a reoccurrence, so that hopefully we won't have to have this coming back in. And to me, that's really the key, is that the long-term goal is to be an improvement and to stop, this won't happen again. They won't be back in front of us in a year asking for another temporary permit.
Aye.
I don't have much to add at this point, but I would say I understand if I lived in the neighborhood, I would also have concerns that it might become a permanent fixture. But we have the applicant on record saying this is a temporary thing, and we have department's head on record saying that it's only a good idea if it's a temporary thing. So I intend to support it.
Anyone else? Tracy?
I kind of echo what my fellow commissioners have said before this, and I believe that what happened in the past is very unfortunate, but none of us were here at that time. And I do want to just go on record and say I am only in support of this if it's temporary. If it's permanent, then I'm not. I won't support it.
Anyone else? Yeah, I just echo what has already been said, and then I would suggest that the folks that were in opposition monitor this, and in 15 days, if it's not completed, can make a complaint, because that's the way it's going to get done. Mm-hmm. Jerry, please call the vote.
Okay, I just want to clarify that the motion was made by Lust and seconded by Scheer?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. Beecham?
Yes.
Cornelius?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Lust?
Yes.
Sunderman?
Yes.
Scheer?
Yes.
Hove?
Yes.
Motion carried 8-0. And I believe, since change of zone 16010 is being deferred for 2 weeks, that's the end of the agenda.
At this time, anyone wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so.
Oh, maybe I should just mention that. Where's my salary?
You had that chocolate, right? Oh, she didn't get her chocolate. That's
I think we're adjourned. Thank you.